So I don't have your performance measurements right now, but we're just looking like your hip abduction's really tight. So that's gonna make it hard for you to move sideways. So that your abduction is this, right? So that's gonna be a challenge for you because that's below average. Your hip internals, like your femur rotations, are average. Your trunk or hip flexion, so for you to bring your trunk forward is gonna be restricted. For you to drive your hip is gonna be a little tight as it comes around. So just keep that in mind as we go through. So you can see when you're coming out of leg lift right here, you see how your knee is going down or inward? So as you go forward, it goes inward. That's that hip abduction. So abduction would be pulling your femurs out like that. You can see how you're staying tight in your adductors, more than likely because typically when we have limited range of motion, it's weakness. So it's more than likely just groin weakness too. So groins are hard things to hit, but I'll show you a lot of things we do. So that back knee being collapsed, that's a collapsing leg, because when the knee goes in, it's losing stability. It stays stable out in external rotation. So it's collapsing. So because of your abduction tightness, or adduction tightness, as you move down, you're just collapsing. You're losing the foundation, which is the only leg on the ground, so you're losing stability. So then when you're hitting front foot, we're gonna look at the kinematic sequence. This is speed, so basically time in degrees per second, and the red is your pelvis, so it's pelvis rotation speeds. The green is your trunk rotation speeds. So because it's time in degrees per second, if it spikes hard and high, you're moving very quick. You're accelerating very quick. So you're seeing these like kind of like little humps. There's not enough speed coming through your hip and trunk, which is probably why your arm's having to over accelerate. See, look at the arm. Yeah. You can't. It's going so fast it can't catch you. So at the end of the day, like you could have arm speeds faster than a guy throwing 10 miles an hour harder than you. It's really your kinetic chain that's not accelerating well. So you can see once you hit front foot here, see that red speed, it peaked, and now it's gonna start to flatten off. That's because you hit front foot and your leg had collapsed. You don't have enough force behind that hip right now, which if you would have stayed stable, you could have, and you would have gotten more linear. We want the force vector linear without collapsing. So your hips have to keep going more forward and down at the same rate. If you would have done that, and then you would have driven, you would have hit here and been still pushing through your peaks. So think about it, your hips are this far back and you're flattening out with speed, you're running out of speed. So about peaks about right there. Notice when it peaks, the trunk is peaking too. So they're peaking together. And high velocity pitchers have a larger margin between those peaks. So high velocity guy, he would have a hard hip peak, then later on it would push energy up to a hard trunk peak. So we're lacking that. So that means we have to get more power through the hip, because it really doesn't build the sequence, the kinetic sequence, if you don't power the hip. Everything after that is just trying to overcompensate and throws everything out of sequence. So at the end of the day, we have to not collapse the leg, we gotta get linear, and we gotta get more power through the lower half. So you can see everything comes together, and then I would say your elbow's not that far down, but your elbow's pulling back. And that's typically what happens, because if these are peaking together, well, there needs to be a delay to get it up your arm. So the delay happens by your arm dragging. So your arm goes, well, I got to stay back here and drag so I can wait for that energy. And then that's really also hard on your arm. So that's harder on the front of the shoulder. That delays pronation. It's going to be keep your elbow under tension longer. So it's going to be, and you might not have any arm issues now, but it's something where if you keep pushing up into the 90s like that, you would start breaking down pretty quickly. Okay. So a lot of times you'll feel the body doesn't want to go up there when it knows the stress is too high. It wants to stay down, right? And then as you finish, you're getting extended with your front leg, which is good. And we talked about your hip flexion, but you can see like if you were lower, this leg would be farther out. This would be more forward. An elite guy, let's see if you're there. Your trunk's probably close to where an elite guy would be. Yeah, 47. So the trunk's not bad. It's just you're too high. So when you came out of leg lift, you stayed too high because you couldn't keep abducting and getting your hips forward and down into your drive, which would have put your front leg more forward, even though your trunk might have stayed the same, which could be too. Like I would always tell guys, if your front leg can't go to, like you showed 80 or past 80 degrees, that's about 80 degrees, 100 would probably, right here, a 90-degree angle of this leg to your back, that'd be 90 degrees. So for you to actually get farther out and get more forward, which studies show high velocity pitchers get a more forward trunk position as the front leg is extending, then you're gonna have to have more flexibility, more strength in that position, which you're showing you don't have a lot of. So you can see, like, there's a lot to be optimized here. Like, we've got to work on the mobility issues. We've got to get some more power too and strength to stay more stable, stay more mobile, continue the hips forward and down, more peak, more drive through the hips to increase your peaks, and then that should push you out in a more forward trunk position and accelerate more energy up your kinetic chain. I think your like vertical lift over here is good. That's why your spin efficiency is not too bad. And vertical lift means you have good pronation speeds. So I think when you come to release, that, you know, the fact that you have such a, you bring your trunk forward really well, that's what's creating good vertical lift. You're not really pulling off too hard, you know, and that's what's impressive, is that as you're collapsing here, a lot of guys would just pull off. You're still able with your good strong front leg to push your trunk forward. So I think that's why you have good spin on your ball, but the velo is going to come when you get the lower half better, so we can get the speeds up, because you saw your speeds are just too low.
Yeah.
So you got good quality stuff at the end, you're just failing the lower half because of the mobility and understanding how to use the lower half better, and then, you know, that'll be significantly better.